Dead by Daylight is a game that's been chugging along for over 9 years at this point. A titan in horror, asymmetrical, player versus player, and live service as a whole, there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. The game's highest player count ever was just months ago, with the release of Springtrap, and the influx of new players from Five Nights at Freddy's even surpassed that of Resident Evil's nemesis, my very own main. But there's something that's been lurking, insidiously, in the background all of these years. Is it patches? Is it balance? Is it a release of something brand new that's overpowered as hell? Is it a lack of communication with the community? Well, all of those are also a problem, but today I want to talk about one thing and one thing only. That is, of course, perk design, but more specifically, exhaustion perks. Sprint Burst was the first exhaustion perk that came out with Meg Thomas upon the game's initial release, and since then, many more have been released. Balanced Landing, Lithe, Dead Hard, Head On, Smash Hit, Overcome, Background Player, and Dramaturgy, and Rapid Response, but who's counting? What separates an exhaustion perk from the rest of the perks in the game is their unique ability and strength to give survivors a significant amount of distance from the killer, with each one having a unique way to use it. Lithe will give you speed when you vault a window. Overcome will simply extend your speed after being hit. Balanced Landing will let you jump from great heights and zoom away. These perks are, inherently, always going to be meta, the strongest. So, what's the problem? Inherently, strong perks are not a problem. The problem is more so along the lines of certain perks simply removing things that the game is balanced around. Let me go off on a tangent for a moment about map design, but I promise that it's relevant. Realms in Dead by Daylight number 20, with 45 separate maps amongst all of them. Maps are going to be stronger or weaker depending on the design of a map, such as Badham Preschool being extremely strong for Survivor, and a map like Midwich Elementary School being very strong for Killer. There are hundreds of variables that can change how a map works, like killer choice, perk choice, door spawn RNG, tile spawn RNG. You get the point. My problem comes from one such thing, which is generator placement. If you're unaware, every match of Dead by Daylight spawns 7 such generators across a map, and each one is going to be considered safe or unsafe depending on its location. Some generators are in the same spot every game. These are called static generators, and others are based on RNG, which is similar to pallet spawns, door spawns, window spawn. You get it. You get the idea. Some generators are safe, and some are unsafe. Unsafe generators could spawn in the middle of nowhere with nothing around it. They could have no sightlines, or they could have even too many sightlines, so that the killer can know that you're doing the generator very easily. And if you get these unsafe generators done early, it will then allow you a safe place to run the killer around. A generator in the middle of the map would be considered significantly more unsafe compared to one in a corner. These situations, of course, vary, but the game is usually balanced around having some generators that are safe and some that are unsafe to do. This is part of the balance of Dead by Daylight, and it leads me back into the main point of variables that impact this. Sprint Burst. This perk completely negates the aspect of what makes an unsafe generator. A survivor can be completely caught out in the open and simply get away from 90% of the killers in the game just by having this perk. They can get away for free from all but the most mobile killers. It's something that has sort of flown under the radar for a long time, but after almost 6,000 hours in the game, it's finally gotten to a point. I play the Nemesis, essentially only the Nemesis. And for most of my games, I don't feel challenged by player skill. I get challenged by perks. I have no inherent mobility on my killer, so I don't get to keep my usual 4 perk slots if I want to keep my sanity. Languid Touch, for example, a perk from Vecna, can deal with most exhaustion perks. But the thing with Sprint Burst is that it doesn't necessarily have an activation condition. Languid Touch can get value against most of these exhaustion perks because its activation condition is running into a bird. With Lithe, you might have to get to a window. You could run into a bird before reaching it. With Dead Hard, you might run into a bird and become exhausted, becoming unable to use the perk once you become injured. Sprint Burst fundamentally is problematic because there's no real activation condition. There's no window to vault, there's no great height to fall from, no need to be injured, it's just start running. If you're sitting on a generator, naturally, you'll also be recovering from exhaustion, so 9 out of 10 times, a Sprint Burst user just gets to leave any and every generator for free, which is a fundamental frustration in game design, map design, perk design, all of it, really. This perk rewards mispositioning more so than any other exhaustion perk in the game, and I'm honestly tired of it. Now, of course, people can run any perk that they want to, but there are 2 big glaring issues in game design that I don't think are going to be addressed anytime soon. The palette density update was shipped as something made to be quality of life for the game as a whole, with next to zero actual compensations for the killer role. I even mainly play a killer that can chew through palettes relatively quickly, and it still feels like too much. A lot of the changes that are made to help the casual player, a coughing baby, with the hydrogen bombs in the fog. Blight, Nurse, Ghoul, Billy, extremely strong killers that are extremely punishing to play against if you aren't playing perfectly as a survivor. These killers are a big part of why Exhaustion Perks exists, and why Exhaustion Perks are so strong. Blight, commonly referred to as the strongest killer in the game due to mobility and lethality, is a hydrogen bomb to the average team of survivors. Momo 7th won almost 2,000 games in a row with Blight, and while, yes, obviously this is incredibly impressive, and Momo's a fantastic player, does it not speak to the inherent imbalance of Dead by Daylight as a whole? What other game could you win that many games in a row? Blight is incredibly overtuned, and is personally remaining untouched with every balance change that we get despite this. Blight's strength, as well as other killers in the S tier being so incredibly powerful, are the reasons that perks for the survivor role are, in response, incredibly powerful. A perk's power has to be designed to keep up against the strongest killers, and inherently just obliterate killers that are weaker. That's just a side effect of how Dead by Daylight's design works. A survivor can lithe a window away from the Blight, and he's going to catch up in 3 seconds regardless. A survivor that drops off a hill with balanced landing away from the Ghoul will be caught up to seconds after. If a survivor runs away from the Pig with Sprint Burst, it could be upwards of 30 seconds before there's even an opportunity to hit them. The mere existence of these incredibly powerful killers, not the Pig, negates the ability to really balance these perks, as there isn't any form of a tier strength that's brought into the trials. Perks will be the same strength, on paper, regardless of who they're being used against. So what can we really do about this? What change could be made to actually fix this for people that don't play the top of the top? Is there ideally a simple fix for an issue like this? Fundamentally, no. It kind of just gets to pipe dream scenarios. I can pitch ideas all day, but there's not really a way to just fix Dead by Daylight in one patch. My ideal world, personally, is one that doesn't have exhaustion or slowdown perks at all, and then balance the game with that in mind somehow. Do I know how it would work? Probably not. I'm not a game designer. I'm just frustrated immensely with the fact that for every Blight or Ghoul or whatever other powerful killer a survivor faces, I will inherently suffer with the strength of their build as a result. I'd love to see a world where exhaustion perks actually get nerfed, but the mere existence of the palette density update, as well as this video from Mintskull, simply show that BHVR has an inherent bias for the survivor role. Surveys given to the player base for player satisfaction inherently lack the ability to put forth feedback as a killer. The last survey we had was something along the lines of 50 to 60 questions or so, and there was one that was talking about player satisfaction for killers. Not even a question that had a box to fill in with text, just a simple bubble choice. It's growing increasingly frustrating for me, and I hate being negative in general. But it does really get to the point where my games don't feel as fun. I get fun hits, I win games, but the games I lose, I almost never feel like, yeah, I got outplayed. It's just, yeah, I got outperked. I'm just tired. And the community doesn't really help with this a good bit of the time. Yes, the negativity bias is real, but it's always seemingly an argument of us versus them. But then every single person you hear an us versus them argument from is someone that only plays one side, and they don't have a fundamental idea on what makes something insanely powerful. Again, I have 6,000 hours, so I think I have a good idea of what makes something really strong. Blight is really strong. A lot of survivor perks are really strong. A little bit ago, when I was streaming, it got to the point where I was getting more hate for playing the Nemesis than the Ghoul, who is a killer that is notoriously hated on. The player base has honestly become full of people that feel entitled to winning because BHVR said so. You can see this in the Go Next epidemic, which still continues because the disconnect penalties are a joke. People will disconnect on the first inconvenience to them personally because there is literally no downside. I got shit on? I can just leave and go to a new match. Fuck the other 4 people here. Not my problem. I do things that people have never seen before on a killer that a lot of people play. Nemesis.
You can go through the wall like that?
I'm not trying to ego it. It's just I'm comparing someone with 6,000 hours to the average player of a killer. The dislike of competence has been brewing in the community for years, and it finally feels like After 3 or 4 patches of straight bullshit, it's just kind of getting to a boiling point. I don't think that Dead by Daylight is going to get to the point where it straight up dies, as the average player doesn't even keep up with things like this. The biggest creators in the DBD space have around 1 million followers on their platforms, and this is a fraction of the amount of people that play Dead by Daylight. Robert, 57, from Nashville, Tennessee, a lifetime Evil Dead fan, does not keep up with content creator drama. They just like playing as Ashley J. Williams. There's nothing wrong with that. I am a casual player in plenty of games. With Dead by Daylight, though, and its near lack of true matchmaking, it feels really bad to just win 99% of my games on autopilot, and then randomly get the hardest game of my life out of nowhere because I run into a group that has 40,000 hours amongst them. I want Dead by Daylight to be better than it currently is. I wish there was an actual tutorial for characters in client. League of Legends, for all of its problems, has a fantastic version of this, where you can click a character and instantly find out what they do. You don't have to open the wiki, YouTube, Twitch, whatever, just to find out how to play against something or what something does. Every time I think about an issue I have with the game of Dead by Daylight, I'm not going to get started with League, I just kind of get to go down an entire rabbit hole on how to actually fix the root cause of an issue, rather than just putting a band-aid over it. A simple problem like, I hate sprint burst, even. It goes down the line of balance decisions going back years and years that have slowly gotten harder to stomach over time. Exhaustion perks are strong because of how strong killers are. Killers are strong because of how powerful the survivor role has become. More people play strong killers because of updates that make survivor stronger. More people bring stronger things on survivor because of how many strong killers they run into. Rinse, repeat, the cycle of life and death continues. We will die. So, how are we fixing it? What's going to change? I have ideas, plenty of them, sure, but I'd like to hear what you think. In an ideal world, what does Dead by Daylight look for you? And if you are a player that plays the majority of one side of the game, which is, again, completely fine, please don't make this an us versus them issue. No matter what you feel about the other side or the them, we all need each other to play the game. If the game had no killers, the game would die. If the game had no survivors, the game would die. We are a community of people, and even if somebody is different than you, we can still play the same thing and enjoy the same game. I don't necessarily think that because you lost in a game, there is a personal vendetta against you. Sure, there are a lot of bad eggs, but that's just how people are. Sometimes someone's going to be a shitter. That's not really news. That's just the human condition and video gaming and PvP in general. But I don't want people to go out of their way to attack each other over this. It feels really bad. And if there's not people voicing for changes on things to get better, things will never get better. So, how would you make things better? What would you do? Please feel free to let me know. I would genuinely love discussing this type of thing. It's one of my favorite topics. I'm very passionate about Dead by Daylight. And that's kind of all I have today. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Catch you later. Bye.